General Taemin Kang stood at the observation window of the neutral zone station, watching stars drift past in the endless darkness of space. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen too many battles. His uniform was clean and pressed, decorated with medals that told stories of wars fought and won. Today he hoped there would be no fighting. Today was supposed to be about peace. Lieutenant Nari Shin walked up behind him, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. She was young, maybe 25, with quick reflexes and a mind that worked faster than most computers. She had been Taemin's aide for 3 years now, and he trusted her completely. "General, the council representatives will arrive in 10 minutes, she said quietly. Taemin nodded but didn't turn around. "Are our security teams in position?" "Yes, sir." But the council insisted on minimal guards. They said it would show good faith. Taemin finally looked at her. "Good faith from people who demanded we come alone to their station? I don't like it, Nari." "Neither do I, sir. But President Park ordered us to try." The general sighed. President Hyejin Park was a good leader, but she still believed diplomacy could solve everything. Taemin had spent 40 years in the military. He knew that sometimes words weren't enough. Sometimes people only understood force. The station was massive, built by the Galactic Council 50 years ago as a place where different species could meet and talk without fighting. It floated in empty space, exactly halfway between human territory and council space. The walls were white and sterile, the lights too bright. Everything about it felt cold and unwelcoming. Taemin walked to the reception hall with Nari and 6 security guards. The room was large, with a high ceiling and tables filled with food from a dozen different worlds. Most of it looked strange to human eyes. Some of it was still moving. Ambassador Vexthor arrived exactly on time. He was a crystalline being, nearly 8 feet tall. His body made of something that looked like purple glass. Light reflected off him in strange ways, making it hard to look directly at him. Behind him came 12 guards in black armor, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. "So much for minimal security," Nari whispered. Taemin said nothing. He walked forward and offered his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Vexthor looked at it like it was something disgusting, then turned away. "General Kang," the ambassador said, his voice sounding like breaking glass. "The Council has reviewed humanity's request for expanded territory. We have reached a decision." "I'm listening," Taemin said calmly. "Humanity will surrender all colonies beyond the Saturn line. You will accept Council oversight of your military forces. You will pay tribute of 30% of your annual production. These terms are non-negotiable." The room went silent. Even the strange alien food seemed to stop moving. Taemin felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice level. "Ambassador, those aren't peace terms. That's surrender. We came here to negotiate as equals." Vexthor's body seemed to glow brighter. "Equals? Your species has existed in space for barely 200 years. The Council has maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000. You are children playing with weapons you don't understand. You will accept our terms, or you will be taught your place." Taemin took a step forward. "Is that a threat?" "It is reality, human." Something changed in the room. Taemin felt it before he saw it. The council guards shifted their positions, moving to surround the human delegation. Nari's hand moved toward her sidearm, but Taemin caught her eye and shook his head slightly. "Not yet. Let me tell you something about humanity, Ambassador," Taemin said quietly. "We don't respond well to threats. We've fought wars on our own planet that would make your council cry. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and tried to destroy ourselves with nuclear weapons. We're still here, and we didn't come to space to bow to anyone." Vexthor made a sound like shattering crystal. It might have been laughter. "You speak of courage, but I see only foolishness. The Council has destroyed species far more advanced than yours. What makes you think you're special? Because we don't know when to quit, Taman said. Then everything went wrong. The Council guards raised their weapons in perfect unison. Energy blasts filled the air, blue and white and burning hot. Two of Taman's guards fell before they could even draw their guns. The others returned fire, their bullets sparking off the black armor. Nari grabbed Taman and pulled him behind a table. "Move! Move!" she shouted. They ran toward the exit, but more Council soldiers poured in from the corridors. There were too many, way too many. This wasn't a spontaneous attack. This was planned. Taman pulled his pistol and shot two guards who got too close. Beside him, Nari fought like a demon, her movements precise and deadly. But for every guard they dropped, two more appeared. "The escape pods!" Nari yelled over the sound of weapons fire. "Section C!" They fought their way through corridors slick with blood. 3 of their guards were dead. The other 3 were badly wounded. Taman's shoulder burned where an energy blast had grazed him, but he ignored the pain. They had to get out. They had to warn Earth. Section C was close, just around the next corner. Taman could see the pod doors, the blessed sight of escape. Then Nari stumbled. She fell hard, blood spreading across her uniform. An energy bolt had hit her in the side, burning through her armor. Taman dropped to his knees beside her. "Leave me," she gasped. "Get to the pod." "Not happening, Lieutenant." He lifted her over his shoulder, his old body screaming in protest. Council guards were coming up behind them, their weapons charging for another volley. Taman's remaining guards turned to face them, buying precious seconds with their lives. Taman made it to the pod and threw Nari inside. He climbed in after her and slammed his fist on the launch button. The door sealed shut just as energy blasts hit the hull. The pod shot away from the station, accelerating hard enough to make Taman's vision go gray. Through the small window, he watched the neutral zone station. For a moment, it just sat there in space, white and peaceful. Then it exploded. A massive fireball expanded outward, consuming everything. All those diplomats, all those people who came hoping for peace, all dead. Taman held pressure on Nari's wound as the pod's autopilot set course for Earth. She was unconscious now, her breathing shallow. He didn't know if she would make it. Behind them, the station burned like a small sun. The Council had sent a message, loud and clear. They thought humanity would be afraid. They thought this show of force would make humans surrender. They were wrong. Taman looked at Nari's pale face, at the blood on his hands, at the burning station in the distance. Something cold and hard settled in his chest. The Council wanted war. They were about to learn what humans did when you backed them into a corner. They fought back. The pod tumbled through space toward home, carrying a wounded soldier and a general who now knew exactly what had to be done. The Council had made their choice. Now humanity would make theirs. Operation Nightfall was about to begin. The war room deep beneath Seoul was cold and filled with tension. President Hee-jin Park stood at the head of the long table, her face showing no emotion, but her hands were clenched tight. Around her sat the most powerful people in humanity's government and military. On the large screen behind her, footage of the neutral zone station explosion played on repeat. General Taman Kang sat with his arm in a sling, the burn on his shoulder bandaged, but still painful. He had been back on Earth for 6 hours. Nari was in surgery, fighting for her life. 23 other humans had died in the attack. The Council was already broadcasting lies, saying humanity attacked first. "They planned this," said Min-ho Choi, the head of military intelligence. He was a thin man with glasses who looked more like a professor than a spy. "We've analyzed their fleet movements over the past 4 months. They've been positioning invasion forces around all our outer colonies. This attack was meant to justify war." Defense Minister Suho Lee slammed his fist on the table. Then we hit them back, hard. We mobilize every ship, every soldier. We show them that humans don't roll over. We'd lose, Taman said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The Council has 70-member species. They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 300 that could fight in deep space. If we go head-to-head with them, we'll be extinct in 6 months. So what do you suggest? President Park asked. Surrender? Taman's eyes were cold. No. We use Operation Nightfall. The room went silent. Several people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Operation Nightfall was something most of them had only heard rumors about. Are you serious? Suho asked. That plan is insane. It goes against every rule of warfare. The Council just murdered our diplomats in cold blood, Taman said, his voice hard. They don't care about rules, so we stop following them too. President Park studied him for a long moment. Explain it to everyone. What exactly is Operation Nightfall? Taman stood up slowly, favoring his injured shoulder. He walked to the screen and changed the display. A complex network of plans and strategies appeared. Operation Nightfall has 3 phases, he began. Phantom, Reaper, and Dawn. It's not about winning battles, it's about making the Council afraid. It's about breaking their will to fight. He pointed to the first section. Phase 1, Phantom. We send stealth ships into Council territory. Small crews, fast ships, impossible to track. They hit supply lines, communication stations, isolated outposts, always at night, always without warning. Then they disappear like ghosts. The Council will start seeing threats everywhere. They'll waste resources chasing shadows. That's guerrilla warfare, Minho said, leaning forward with interest. Hit-and-run tactics. Exactly. But we add something extra. We use psychological operations. We hack their networks and fill them with false information. Fake fleet positions. Fake weapon capabilities. We make them paranoid. We make them doubt everything their sensors tell them. Who leads Phase 1? President Park asked. Captain Jiho Yoon. He's our best stealth pilot. He'll take the Silent Horizon and a hand-picked crew deep into enemy space. Taman moved to the next section. Phase 2. Reaper. This is where we use our technological advantage. The Council has better ships, but their technology is old. They've been the dominant power for so long, they've stopped innovating. We've been developing weapons they can't even imagine. What kind of weapons? Suho asked. Autonomous hunter drones. Millions of them. Each one is small enough to fit in your hand, but smart enough to breach a starship hull and disable it from inside. We hide them throughout the solar system. When the Council fleet arrives expecting an easy victory, we swarm them. Several people around the table looked shocked. One admiral spoke up. That could actually work. Their ships are huge. They'd never be able to defend against something that small. And Phase 3? President Park asked. Taman's expression became grim. Phase 3, Dawn. We break the Council itself. Most of their member species don't want this war. They're being forced to fight by the ruling caste. We gather evidence of corruption and oppression. We broadcast it across the galaxy. We offer peace to any species that withdraws from the conflict. We turn this from humanity versus the galaxy into freedom versus tyranny. The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, President Park spoke. This plan could work, but it could also make us look like terrorists, like the villains. We're already the villains in their story, Taman said. They blew up a peace station and blamed us. The question is, do we die as heroes following rules that our enemy ignores? Or do we survive by fighting smart instead of fair? President Park looked around the table at each person. Vote. Operation Nightfall, yes or no? One by one, hands went up. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. Then we proceed, Park said. General Kong, you have full authorization. Begin Phase 1 immediately. Taman nodded and left the room. He walked through the underground corridors to the military command center, where Captain Jiho Yoon was waiting. Jiho was younger than most captains, only 32, but he had proven himself in countless missions. He stood when Taman entered, his expression serious. "Captain, how quickly can you and your crew be ready to leave?" Taman asked. "The Silent Horizon is fueled and armed, sir. My crew is on standby. We can launch in 2 hours." "Good. Your mission is to make the Council afraid of the dark. Don't take unnecessary risks, but make every strike count. Target their confidence, not just their ships." Jiho smiled grimly. "We'll make them wish they never heard of humanity, sir." In the medical bay, Nari woke up to bright lights and the sound of machines beeping. Her side hurt like fire, but she was alive. A nurse noticed her eyes open and called for the doctor. When Taman came to visit her an hour later, she tried to sit up. He gently pushed her back down. "Rest, Lieutenant. You've earned it." Did anyone else make it?" she asked weakly. "You and I? Everyone else is gone?" Nari closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "What happens now?" Now we make them pay." In orbit high above Earth, the Silent Horizon prepared for departure. Captain Jiho stood on his ship's bridge with Tactical Officer Eunbi Han and Engineer Daejung Kim. They watched Earth rotate slowly beneath them, so blue and peaceful and small. "All systems green," Daejung reported. "Cloaking devices functioning at 100%. "Plot a course into Council space," Jiho ordered. "Take us to the edge of the Tarkon sector. That's where their biggest supply depot is." "Aye, Captain. Course plotted." Eunbi looked at her captain with concern. "Sir, there will be hundreds of ships guarding that depot." "Then they'll never expect us to hit it," Jiho said with a cold smile. "Signal Earth that we're departing. Operation Nightfall. Phase 1 begins now." The Silent Horizon's engines flared to life, and the ship shot forward, accelerating past the moon and out toward the distant stars. Behind it, Earth mobilized for war. Factories that built cars and computers now built weapons and armor. Civilians volunteered in massive numbers for military service. Humanity was angry, and that anger was a weapon all its own. In the cold depths of space, the Council fleet gathered. Thousands of ships from dozens of species, all preparing to crush the upstart humans once and for all. They believed it would be easy. They believed humanity would break quickly. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Far from Earth, the Silent Horizon entered Council space unseen and undetected. In the darkness between stars, humanity's first ghost ship went hunting. The Council's nightmare was beginning, and they didn't even know it yet. The Tarkon supply depot floated in space like a small metal moon. It was massive, 3 miles across, with docking ports for hundreds of ships. Council vessels came and went constantly, loading weapons, fuel, and supplies for the invasion fleet. Guards patrolled in fighters, and defensive stations bristled with weapons. The Council believed it was impossible to attack. They were about to be proven wrong. The Silent Horizon drifted closer, completely invisible to every sensor the depot had. Captain Jiho Yoon watched the screens carefully as his ship moved through the chaos of traffic like a shark swimming through a school of fish. "We're in position," Eunbi Han whispered, though there was no need to whisper. No one could hear them. "Marking priority targets now." On her screen, 3 locations lit up red. A fuel storage facility, the main communication array, and the command center. All critical, all vulnerable. "Daejung, are the charges ready?" Jiho asked. The engineer nodded. 20 magnetic mines armed and ready. They'll attach to the hull and detonate on your signal. "Deploy them." Small hatches opened on the Silent Horizon's belly. 20 dark objects drifted out, each no bigger than a briefcase. They moved slowly through space, drawn toward the depot by tiny thrusters. One by one, they attached to their targets with soft magnetic clicks that no one heard. All mines attached, Daejung reported. We're clear to withdraw. Not yet, Jiho said. Unbi, open a broadcast channel. Wide band, unencrypted. I want everyone to hear this. She looked at him in surprise, but did as ordered. Channel open, sir. Jiho leaned forward and spoke clearly. This is a message from humanity to the Galactic Council. You attacked our diplomats. You murdered innocents. You thought we would surrender. You were wrong. This is only the beginning. Nowhere is safe. No one is safe. The ghosts are coming for you. He nodded to Daejung. Detonate. The engineer pressed a button. 20 explosions blossomed across the depot simultaneously. Fuel tanks erupted in massive fireballs. The communication array shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. The command center's hull breached, venting atmosphere and bodies into space. Alarms screamed. Ships scrambled to respond, but the silent horizon was already gone, vanishing into the darkness before anyone even knew what hit them. In the command center of the Council invasion fleet, High Commander Thexral received the news. He was an insectoid being, 7 feet tall with 4 arms and multifaceted eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't imagine. Right now, those eyes burned with rage. How? He hissed. How did the humans penetrate our defenses? We don't know, Commander, an aide said nervously. Our sensors detected nothing. No ships, no weapons, nothing until the explosions. Find them. Send every patrol ship. I want that human vessel destroyed. But there was nothing to find. The silent horizon was gone, and the Council fleet was left chasing shadows. Meanwhile, on Earth, another part of Operation Nightfall was beginning. In a secure facility beneath Tokyo, specialist Jiwon Park led a team of the best hackers humanity had ever produced. She was 28, had been coding since she was 6, and could break into systems most people didn't even know existed. All right, team, she said, her fingers already flying across holographic keyboards. The Council uses a unified communication network, old technology but reliable. They think it's unhackable because it's based on quantum encryption. Is it unhackable? Asked one of her team members. Jiwon grinned. Nothing is unhackable. It just takes time and creativity. Good thing we have both. Officer Senaquan spent 3 years building an algorithm that can predict quantum states. It's brilliant. Now we use it. They worked for 18 hours straight, probing the Council network, finding weak points, inserting backdoors. Finally, Jiwon leaned back with a satisfied smile. We're in. Full access to their military communications. What do you want to do first? Plant false intelligence, came the order from General Kang himself via secure channel. Make them see phantom fleets that don't exist. Make them doubt everything. Jiwon and her team got to work. Within hours, Council commanders were receiving reports of human battleships in 6 different sectors simultaneously. None of them were real. Sensor logs were altered to show weapon signatures that didn't exist. Audio files were fabricated of captured Council soldiers describing horrific new human weapons. Every piece of false information was designed to create fear and confusion. And it worked. Across Council space, commanders pulled their fleets back to defend positions that weren't actually threatened. Resources were wasted chasing ghost ships. Species began to question whether fighting humanity was worth the cost. The psychological warfare was devastating, but the Council wasn't helpless. They still had overwhelming numbers. High Commander Thexral decided to end this quickly with a massive assault on Earth itself. He assembled an armada of 300 warships, the largest fleet ever gathered. Every species contributed ships. It was supposed to be unstoppable. Set course for the Sol system, Thexral commanded. We will burn their homeworld to ash. Then these games will end. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, emerging at the edge of the solar system 2 days later. They expected to find Earth's defenses scattered and weak. Instead, they found 12 human ships waiting near Saturn, led by Admiral Yuna Bay. On the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant, Admiral Yuna watched the Council fleet arrive. She was 52 years old, had fought in 3 wars, and never once showed fear. She wasn't about to start now. 300 ships, her tactical officer reported. We're outnumbered 25-1. Good, Yuna said calmly. That means this will be interesting. Signal all ships. Operation Reaper is active. Release the swarm. Throughout Saturn's rings, hidden among billions of ice particles, humanity's secret weapon activated. Millions of small drones, each no larger than a fist, powered up simultaneously. Their sensors locked onto Council ships. Their programming was simple: penetrate, disable, destroy. High Commander Thexrol watched from his command ship as the human vessels held their position. He laughed. They're not even running. This will be easier than expected. All ships, attack formation. Prepare to fire. That's when his sensors detected something strange. Millions of small objects were emerging from the rings, moving impossibly fast. At first, he thought they were ice chunks. Then they started accelerating toward his fleet. "What are those?" he demanded. No one had time to answer. The first wave of drones reached the Council fleet. They were too small and too many for point defense systems to stop. They hit the huge warships like a swarm of metal insects, burning through hulls with tiny but powerful cutting lasers. Once inside, they targeted critical systems, engines, weapons, life support. The Council fleet descended into chaos. Ships reported hull breaches on every deck. Systems failed one after another. Commanders screamed orders, but nothing worked. The drones were everywhere, thousands of them on each ship, and conventional weapons couldn't stop something so small moving so fast inside the ship itself. Within 2 hours, half the Council fleet was crippled or destroyed. The survivors tried to retreat, but the drones pursued them, relentless and merciless. Admiral Yuna's 12 ships didn't fire a single shot. They just watched as humanity's swarm did its work. High Commander Thexrol stood on his damaged bridge, emergency lights flickering, watching his grand invasion fleet tear itself apart from the inside. He had underestimated the humans. They didn't fight the way the Council fought. They didn't play by the rules. "Retreat," he ordered quietly. "All ships that can still move, retreat to Council space." Less than 100 ships made it out. 200 Council warships floated dead in space, their crews evacuated or dead, their hulls breached by millions of tiny holes. The Battle of Saturn's Gate, as history would call it, lasted 4 hours. It was humanity's greatest victory, but the war wasn't over. While the battle raged, Commander Taewon Song led a Special Forces team on an even more dangerous mission. They infiltrated the Council's Strategic Command Center on the fortress world of Kralon, the heavily defended planet where the Council coordinated all their military operations. Taewon was a veteran of 20 years, cold and precise. His team included demolitions expert Jisoo Oh and infiltration specialist Boram An. They disguised themselves as Council mercenaries, using stolen uniforms and forged credentials. Getting onto Kralon was the easy part. The Council was so confident in their defenses, they never imagined humans could reach their core worlds. Getting to the command center was harder. They had to fight through 3 security checkpoints, killing silently to avoid raising alarms. Finally, they reached the massive computer core that controlled the Council's entire defensive network. Jisoo set her charges carefully. Enough explosives to turn the entire facility into rubble, but they were discovered. Alarms blared. Council soldiers poured into the chamber. Taewon made the hardest decision of his life. "Boram, take the team and get out," he said quietly. "Sir, we can all make it if we—" "No, we can't. Someone has to stay and ensure these charges detonate. Jisoo, that's you. Boram, that's an order. Go. Now." Jisoo nodded slowly, understanding. She had always known this mission might be one way. Boram grabbed Taewon's arm, tears in her eyes, but he pushed her toward the exit. The team ran while Taewon and Jisoo held the entrance, their weapons cutting down Council soldiers. When the team was clear, Jisoo looked at the detonator in her hand. "It's been an honor, Commander," she said. "The honor was mine. See you on the other side, Jisoo." She pressed the button. The explosion was massive, destroying the command center and taking down the Council's entire defensive coordination network. Without it, their forces were blind and scattered. Taewon's team escaped Kralon with tears on their faces and victory in their hearts. Jisoo-Oh's sacrifice saved billions of human lives. Her name would never be forgotten. The Galactic Council was falling apart from the inside. In the Grand Chamber on the capital world of Aetheron, representatives from 70 species argued and shouted at each other. The unified front they had shown at the war's beginning was crumbling fast. Ambassador Sarah Lim watched it all from the visitors' gallery. She was humanity's representative to the Council, though she had been given no formal recognition. She was here unofficially, invited secretly by species who were tired of the war. Sarah was 40 years old, spoke 12 languages, and had a gift for understanding what people wanted even when they wouldn't say it. Beside her sat a Velcorian diplomat named Cross. His people were reptilian, with scales that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, Cross's scales were a muddy gray, indicating stress and uncertainty. "Your people have broken us," Cross said quietly. "We thought you would surrender after a few defeats. Instead, you made us afraid of our own shadows." "We didn't want this war," Sarah replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Your council attacked first. I know, many of us know, but High Commander Thexral won't admit defeat. He wants to fight until humanity is extinct. He's calling for total war, extermination." Down in the chamber, Thexral was indeed making that argument. His 4 arms gestured wildly as he spoke in his clicking insectoid language. "The humans are a plague," his translator broadcast. "They do not fight with honor. They attack from darkness like cowards. They poison our networks with lies. We cannot allow such a species to exist. We must destroy them completely, burn their world, eliminate every last one." But not everyone agreed. Council Arbiter Kelvanus, an ancient being whose telepathic abilities made her the closest thing the Council had to a neutral leader, raised one crystalline hand for silence. "Enough," she said, her mental voice touching every mind in the chamber. "We are speaking of genocide, of the murder of an entire species. Is this what the Galactic Council has become?" "They murdered thousands of our soldiers," Thexral shouted back. "After we murdered their diplomats," Kelvanus replied coldly. "Or have you forgotten that this war began with our treachery? We invited them to peace talks, then slaughtered them. We started this, Thexral, and now we are losing it." The chamber erupted in argument again. Sarah watched carefully, noting which species supported Thexral and which were wavering. She had work to do. Over the next week, Sarah met secretly with representatives from 24 species. She didn't threaten. She didn't demand. She simply showed them evidence that humanity's intelligence officers had gathered over years of observation. Evidence of how the Council's ruling caste had been exploiting the member species for centuries. How resources were distributed unfairly. How some species were treated as second-class citizens while others lived in luxury. The Velcorians learned that their mineral exports were being sold at 10 times the price they received. The Zentari discovered that the Council had been suppressing their scientific research to prevent them from becoming too advanced. The Threxians found out that Council leaders had been secretly taking their youth as slaves, calling it educational exchange programs. One by one, species began to question their loyalty to the Council, not because humanity convinced them, but because they saw the truth they had been ignoring for centuries. Meanwhile, humanity's military continued its offensive. Field Marshal Min-seok Han led the counterattack, reclaiming colonies the Council had captured in the war's first days. Min-seok was methodical and careful, never risking his forces unnecessarily, but always pushing forward. On the agricultural world of Thessa 9, his forces encountered something unexpected. The planet was inhabited by the Thessians, a peaceful species that the Council had conquered decades ago. When human Marines led by Sergeant Hana Choi entered the capital city, they expected resistance. Instead, they found crowds of Thessians cheering and throwing flowers. "Welcome, liberators," the Thessian leader said, bowing low. "The Council has oppressed us for 30 years. They take our food, our resources, our children to fight their wars. When we heard humans were coming, we prayed you would free us, not conquer us." Sergeant Hana was overwhelmed. She was 24, had joined the military to defend Earth, and never expected aliens to treat her like a hero. She helped the Thessians establish their own government, left behind supplies and medical aid, then moved on. Word of humanity's mercy spread faster than any propaganda could. General Taemin Kong watched reports of these developments from Earth with satisfaction. His shoulder had healed, and Lieutenant Nari Shin was back on duty, though she moved more carefully now. They stood together in the command center, monitoring the war's progress. "Phase 3 is working better than we hoped," Nari said, reading intelligence reports. 7 species have withdrawn from the Council alliance. 12 more are refusing to send additional troops. The Council's military strength is down by 40%. "But Thexral still has enough forces to do tremendous damage," Taemin replied. "And he's desperate. Desperate people make dangerous choices." He was right to worry. High Commander Thexral was planning something terrible. Without the Council's approval, he gathered his most loyal forces and prepared to launch a final strike at Earth. Not a military strike. Something worse. He planned to use orbital bombardment weapons to destroy Earth's atmosphere, making the planet uninhabitable. If he couldn't defeat humanity in battle, he would commit genocide. But humanity's intelligence network had grown strong. Specialist Ji-won Park intercepted the orders from her hacker's nest beneath Tokyo. "General Kang, we have a problem," she said over secure communication. "Thexral is moving toward Earth with weapons of mass destruction, 40 ships heavily armed. They'll be in range in 3 days. Taemin's jaw tightened. "Can we stop them? Our fleet is scattered across multiple systems. We'd need at least a week to gather enough ships for defense. We don't have that time." Taemin was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then he smiled grimly. "Then we don't defend, we attack. Get me Admiral Yuna Bay." Admiral Yuna listened to the plan and laughed. It was insane. Suicidal. Perfect. "So let me understand," she said. "You want me to take 12 ships deep into Council space and attack their homeworld of Aetheron? While Thexral is attacking Earth?" "Exactly. We can't stop his fleet in time, but we can make the Council stop him. If we threaten Aetheron, they'll have to recall him to defend it." "Sir, Aetheron is the most heavily defended planet in the galaxy, which is why they won't expect us to attack it. Will you do it?" Yuna looked at her bridge crew. They were scared, but determined. They had come this far together. They weren't going to stop now. "Set course for Aetheron," she ordered. "Maximum speed." 2 days later, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace right in Aetheron's orbit. The Council's defense forces scrambled, confused, and panicked. Why would humans attack here? It made no strategic sense. Unless... On the bridge of the Defiant, Admiral Yuna opened a communication channel to the entire planet. Every screen, every radio, every communication device on Aetheron received her message. "This is Admiral Yuna Bay of the human fleet. We are here because High Commander Thexral is currently attempting to commit genocide against our species. He acts without Council authorization, driven by pride and hatred. We do not want to harm the innocent people of this world. but we will defend our home by any means necessary." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We offer the Council a choice. Recall Thexerol and his fleet. End this war, or we will do what we must to protect humanity. You have 1 hour to decide." The message played on every speaker in the council chamber where the species representatives were meeting. They looked at each other in shock and horror. Thexerol had acted without authorization. He was attempting genocide. Council Arbiter Kelvanas immediately reached out with her telepathic abilities, touching Thexerol's mind across the vast distance of space. What she found there confirmed everything: hatred, rage, determination to destroy humanity, regardless of the cost. "He has gone mad with pride," she announced to the chamber. "He will destroy Earth and start a war that will consume the entire galaxy. We must stop him." Even Thexerol's supporters couldn't defend genocide. The vote was quick and unanimous. Orders went out immediately. Recall Thexerol's fleet. Strip him of command. End the war. But Thexerol refused. He cut communication with the Council and continued toward Earth. He had gone too far to turn back now. He would complete his mission even if it cost him everything. That's when General Taemin Kang played his final card. He opened a communication channel directly to Thexerol's fleet, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Soldiers of the Council Fleet, this is General Taemin Kang of humanity. Your commander has been stripped of authority by your own council. He is leading you to commit genocide, a crime against all galactic law. You have families. You have homes. You have honor. Do not throw away your lives and your souls for one man's pride. Stand down. Go home. Let this war end." In Thexerol's fleet, soldiers looked at each other uncertainly. They had joined to defend the Council, not to murder billions of civilians. One by one, ships began to break formation. First a few, then dozens, then most of the fleet. They turned away and jumped to hyperspace, leaving Thexerol almost alone. The High Commander stood on his bridge, watching his fleet abandon him, and knew he had lost. Not just this battle, but everything. "You have not won," he transmitted to Taemin. "You have only delayed the inevitable. Someday, another will rise to finish what I started." "Maybe," Taemin replied, "but that's a problem for another day. Today, you lost because you forgot something important. War isn't about hate. It's about protecting what you love, and that's something humanity will never forget." Thexerol's remaining ships surrendered. The war was over. 6 months after the war ended, Earth was celebrating. The streets of every major city were filled with people laughing, singing, and remembering those who had given everything for humanity's freedom. They called it Victory Day, but it wasn't about gloating. It was about gratitude and hope for a better future. General Taemin Kang stood alone at the memorial wall in Seoul, looking at thousands of names carved into black stone. Each name represented a life lost in the war. Diplomats murdered at the peace station, soldiers who died defending their posts, specialists who sacrificed themselves for the mission. He found the name he was looking for. Jisoo Special Forces died completing her duty on Kraylon. He placed his hand on the cold stone and closed his eyes. "We won, Jisoo. I hope that means something." "It means everything." Taemin turned to see Lieutenant Nari Shin walking toward him. She moved with a slight limp now, a permanent reminder of the wound she'd taken saving his life, but she was alive, and she was smiling. "The President wants to see you," Nari said. "She's making an announcement." They walked together to the government building where President Heejin Park was preparing to address the nation and the galaxy. The room was filled with cameras and reporters from dozens of species. The Council had collapsed, replaced by something new, the Galactic Assembly, where every species had an equal voice. President Park stepped up to the podium, looking calm and confident. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council attacked humanity without provocation. They believed we would surrender quickly. They learned they were wrong. Today, I am pleased to announce that humanity has been invited to join the new Galactic Assembly as a founding member with full voting rights. The crowd erupted in cheers. It was more than a peace treaty. It was recognition that humanity belonged among the stars as equals. But, Park continued, raising her hand for silence, we must remember how we got here. We won this war not through superior weapons or numbers, but through courage, creativity, and an unwillingness to give up. These are the qualities that define humanity. These are the qualities we must never lose. After the speech, Park called Taemin to her private office. Also, there was Defense Minister Suho Lee and several other officials. General Kang, Park said warmly, the Galactic Assembly has requested that humanity appoint a military advisor to help restructure their defense forces. They want someone who understands both strategy and diplomacy. I'd like you to take the position. Taemin was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he shook his head. Thank you, Madam President, but no. I'm a soldier, not a politician. My war is over. It's time for younger people to build the peace. Park nodded, understanding. Then what will you do? Teach. There are young officers who need to learn what war really means, not the glory, but the cost. I can help with that. Very well, but know that you have earned the right to any position you want. You saved humanity, General. No, Taemin said quietly. Humanity saved itself. I just helped show them how. Across the galaxy, the changes were dramatic. The Galactic Assembly's first action was to free all oppressed species and return stolen resources. The Velcorians got fair payment for their minerals. The Thessians were given reparations and protection. The Zentari were allowed to pursue their scientific research without restrictions. Ambassador Sarah Lim became humanity's official representative to the Assembly. She worked tirelessly to build alliances and trust. It wasn't easy. Many species still feared humans after seeing what they could do in war. But Sarah had a gift for finding common ground. She stood before the Assembly 6 months into her appointment, addressing representatives from over 100 species. I know many of you are afraid of what humanity represents. We fought dirty. We used weapons you consider dishonorable. We broke rules you thought were sacred. And I won't apologize for that because we were fighting for our survival. The chamber was silent, listening. But I want you to understand something about humans. We don't fight because we love violence. We fight because we love our families, our friends, our homes. We fight to protect what matters. And now that the war is over, we want to protect all of you too. That's what humanity does. We protect our family. And if you'll let us, you're part of that family now. The response wasn't immediate, but it came. Species that had fought against humanity began to work with them. Trade agreements were signed, scientific partnerships formed, cultural exchanges began. Slowly, trust was built. Captain Jiho Yoon and the crew of the Silent Horizon became celebrities. Their stealth missions during the war had been declassified, and people were amazed by their daring. Jiho accepted the attention with good humor, but privately, he was glad to be done with war. He took a position teaching advanced tactical flying at the military academy. Admiral Yuna Bay retired from active service and became an advisor to the Assembly's Defense Committee. When species had disputes that might lead to war, they called Yuna to help negotiate. Her reputation as someone who could win any battle but preferred not to fight at all made her perfect for the role. Specialist Jiwon Park continued her work in cyber operations, but now she used her skills to help other species protect their networks from threats. She trained hackers from a dozen worlds, teaching them that technology could be used to build bridges as easily as it could tear them down. Field Marshal Min Seok-han established a peacekeeping force made up of soldiers from multiple species. Their mission was to protect vulnerable worlds from pirates and raiders. It was work that felt more meaningful than war. He was building something instead of destroying it. Sergeant Hana Choi never forgot the Thessians who had welcomed her as a liberator. She volunteered to help train their defense forces, teaching them how to protect themselves. She spent 3 years on Thessa 9, and when she finally left, the entire planet came out to say goodbye. Not everyone was happy with the peace. High Commander Thexral sat in a prison cell on a neutral world, waiting to stand trial for war crimes. He had lost everything: his position, his honor, his freedom. But he wasn't sorry. In his mind, he had been right. Humanity was dangerous and needed to be eliminated. The fact that everyone else disagreed didn't change his beliefs. One day, Ambassador Sarah Lim visited him. She sat across from him in the visiting room, separated by a clear barrier. "Why are you here?" Thexral asked, his voice bitter. "To gloat about your victory?" "No," Sarah said quietly. "I came because I want to understand. You started a war that killed millions of your own people. You tried to commit genocide. Why?" Thexral was silent for a long time. Finally, he said, "Because I was afraid. The Council had ruled for 10,000 years. We were the strongest, the wisest. And then humans appeared, barely out of their own solar system, and you challenged everything. You didn't respect our authority. You didn't fear our power. You made us look weak. So you attacked us because we hurt your pride?" "I attacked because I saw the future. If we let humans rise unchecked, you would replace us. You would become what we were, and I couldn't allow that." Sarah stood to leave, then paused. "You were right about one thing. Humanity is going to change the galaxy, but not by conquering it, by showing everyone that strength doesn't mean domination. It means protection. That's what you never understood, Thexral, and that's why you lost." She walked away, leaving the former commander alone with his thoughts. On Earth, General Taemin Kang stood before his first class of new officers at the military academy. They were young, barely 20 years old, and they looked at him with awe. He was the general who had saved humanity, a living legend. "You're here because you want to be heroes," Taemin said, his voice stern. "You want glory and honor and medals. That's normal. That's human. But let me tell you what being a soldier really means." He gestured to a screen showing images from the war. Destroyed ships, burning stations, the memorial wall with thousands of names. Being a soldier means being willing to die so that others can live. It means making impossible choices. It means carrying the weight of every decision for the rest of your life. It means losing people you care about and having to keep going anyway. The classroom was completely silent. If you're here for glory, leave now. But if you're here because you genuinely want to protect people, because you understand that sometimes violence is necessary to stop worse violence, then I'll teach you everything I know. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be better soldiers than my generation. Maybe you'll find ways to solve problems without war." No one left. They all stayed, listening as Taemin began to teach them the lessons he had learned over 40 years of service. Lieutenant Nari Shin, now promoted to captain, stood at the back of the classroom and smiled. This was how humanity moved forward, not by forgetting the war, but by learning from it. Not by celebrating violence, but by understanding when it was necessary and always seeking alternatives. That evening, as the sun set over Seoul, Nari visited the memorial wall again. She found Jisoo-oh's name and placed flowers there. "We're building something good," she said quietly to the name on the wall. "Something worth what you gave. I hope you can see it, wherever you are." Across the galaxy, on 100 different worlds, humans were doing the same thing: building, teaching, protecting, helping. They hadn't forgotten how to fight, but they were learning how to live in peace. The Galactic Assembly held its first major vote 6 months after its founding. A minor species called the Draxians was being raided by pirates. They needed help, but had no military to defend themselves. The Assembly debated sending peacekeepers, but some species worried it would be too expensive and risky. Then humanity volunteered. "We'll protect them," Ambassador Sarah Lim announced. "Not for payment, not for territory, just because it's the right thing to do. That's what families do for each other." Other species looked at each other, embarrassed that humans had to be the ones to step forward. One by one, they volunteered too. The Velcorians sent ships. The Thessians sent supplies. The Zentari sent medical teams. Together, the Assembly protected the Draxians and drove off the pirates. It was a small thing, just one species on one world. But it meant everything. It proved that the Assembly could work. That cooperation was possible. That maybe, just maybe, the galaxy could be better than it had been before. Years later, historians would look back at the war between humanity and the Galactic Council as a turning point. Not because of who won or lost, but because of what came after. The old council had maintained peace through fear and dominance. The new assembly maintained it through cooperation and mutual protection. And at the center of it all was humanity, the species that refused to surrender. The species that fought with honor even when their enemies didn't. The species that proved you could be strong without being cruel and powerful without being oppressive. Operation Nightfall had been about making the Council afraid of the dark, but Operation Dawn, the final phase that continued long after the shooting stopped, was about bringing light to the entire galaxy. General Taemin Kang lived to see it. He taught for 20 more years, shaping generations of officers who understood that a soldier's greatest victory was preventing war, not winning it. When he finally died at the age of 90, the entire galaxy mourned. Representatives from 100 species came to Earth to pay respects. On his tombstone, they carved a simple epitaph. He fought so others wouldn't have to. And in the darkness of space, humanity's ships continued to patrol, continued to protect, continued to prove that the best use of strength was defending those who couldn't defend themselves. The Council had attacked humanity expecting quick victory. Instead, they got Operation Nightfall. And from the ashes of war, dawn rose over a better galaxy.